So, what we're going to talk about today is getting in opportunity's way. I want to tell you a story. When I got into real estate about 16, 17 years ago, I was 22 years old, and my mom used to tell me, get in opportunity's way. She was a business owner, and she grew a pretty massive business and sold it a few years ago. But she knew how to grow a business. So I remember we were in the car one day and we were driving down the 101 freeway, and I was kind of giving her that 22-year-old just kind of excuses, a little bit of victim. How am I going to make it? There's so many realtors. And I remember my mom looking at me and she said, look over there, Chris. And I'm just looking at a sea of houses. And she said, just look over there. You just got to sell like 10 or 12 of those houses a year to make a really good living. So you just got to go get an opportunity's way. And that stayed with me over the course of my whole entire career, to the point where I probably tell myself this or text somebody this on a daily basis. Anybody listening to this podcast that knows me, they've heard me say get an opportunity's way so many times. It's how when I walk into my office, that's the first thing I think of is get an opportunity's way. And why I say this is because when I'm talking to myself or other realtors, they'll tell me, hey, I'm not doing as much business as I would like. I hear that all the time. I'm not really as busy as I'd like to be. And then I just ask them, discovery questions. Hey, tell me what you did last week. What'd you do yesterday? What'd you do today? What are you doing tomorrow to look for business? And what I find is that people aren't getting in opportunities way. Meaning I'll say, what'd you do last week? Well, I really didn't do much last week. I had to do this. Or I really didn't do much yesterday because I had to go do this, this, and this. And so you just find out really quickly, like, what are the priorities of what they're trying to accomplish. And so I've really never heard a realtor be like, hey, I sat 3 open houses last week. I called 10 people a day in my network. I sent out 5, gratitude cards every single day. And I haven't heard a realtor who's did that over a 90-day period and told me that they're slow. Now, they may not be where they want to be because they're building a business, but they're not looking at it from a defense of, I'm slow. So I was talking to somebody the other day. I had a few realtors shadowing me. So we went to this conference room and I stopped at a certain point because they had asked me, they said, hey, how'd you do? They asked me how I accomplished something in my business. And I looked at them, I said, just start doing some visualization. Act as if whatever you want, you're going to be on a podcast in 1 year. And the host of that podcast is going to say, hey, Chris, how did you accomplish that? And then start telling that story as if you were on the podcast and tell all the things you had to do. And what you're going to find out is those are the stories that you like. When you're listening to a podcast, kind of like an underdog story, when you're listening to a podcast and you hear somebody who's like, hey, how'd you close 100 homes this year? Or how'd you close 60 homes this year? And they would be like, well, do you know what? I sat 87 open houses and I tracked it. And 32 of the open houses, nobody, like 0 came through the door. I had, this many come through, most of them on average. I would call about 15 people a day. I'd send out postcards. Like, think of your podcast that you would be on. And if just whatever your goal is right now, think as if you were going on a show in 1 year and they were asking you, how did you accomplish that? And start saying that out loud. Go on a morning walk and actually script that and say what you would say. And then as you're saying that story and it sounds so cool, just start living it out. So let's start going into like get an opportunities way. What do I mean in the real estate business? And so let's start off with something that I started doing probably about 4 months ago. Because when I would ask people how many houses they would want to close a year, we would go to the next step and I'd say, how are you going to do it? And then that's where it started to get a little squirrely. And so I started to write down, and please message me and let me know other ways to get business because I'd really like to add to this list. But I wrote down a list of all the ways that someone can get business. I wrote repeat business, their network, referrals, which usually come from your network, open houses, expired listings, knocking on doors, just cold calling into just random areas, circle prospecting, internet leads, maybe like Google pay-per-click leads, radio ads, billboards, mailers into an area, what a lot of realtors call farming, probate, like knowing a lawyer who can refer you work of people who have passed away, court-appointed work. You could be on the list for who the judge would appoint for a realtor in a divorce situation, for sale by owner list, and foreclosure list. That's what I put down as the ways that somebody or a realtor could go earn business. So those are the ways. So after you write down how many homes you want to sell, those are the ways to get business. Now just pick two. And as you pick two, study those two. Like as you're studying those two, like listen to podcasts. Like let's say, for example, you pick like me, repeat business, referral business, and internet leads. Start belonging to those, groups on Facebook, or start listening to podcasts of people who do that. For example, when I started doing internet leads about 4 years ago, I would listen, or I was on in Facebook. I was in the Real Geeks Facebook group, and that's the platform that I use. So I was in there on a consistent basis, just asking questions, learning from people. It was like a mastermind on just internet leads. So I'd ask questions, people would answer, other people would ask questions, I would answer, and that group really helped me throughout that time. Now I don't belong in that group anymore. I think there's seasons for the groups that we belong to, but what you want to do is pick two of these, and let's just go through them again: repeat business, network, referrals, open houses, expired listings, knocking doors, cold calling, circle prospecting, internet leads, which would be like pay-per-click leads, radio ads, billboards, mailers into areas, probate, court appointed, for sale by owner list, or foreclosure list. That's what I wrote down. So pick two and start studying those two. But as you're studying those two, implement, like start doing it. Don't be the studier that's like, hey, I'm going to keep researching and researching and researching and then go do it. Go do it while you're researching. For example, if it's open houses and you're learning from people on how to get better at open houses, go sit open houses on a consistent basis while you're learning that. So this is, though, about getting in opportunities way. So you've got to get in enough opportunities way in the day to get that business. For example, like if I just sit in my office today and think that I'm going to close on homes, that's really, really silly of me if I'm not putting any work. So people aren't just going to come and knock on my door at my house and say, hey, Chris, I'd love to buy a house. You've got to go get an opportunities way. So now let's say you pick two of those lanes and you're leaning into it. I'm just going to give you a few stories over the last 16, 17 years, some stories that very few that I just wrote down of how I got in opportunities way and where that's led to in my business. So I'm going to talk about a client of mine, Colleen. And super cool stories. Colleen was referred to me, not even really referred to me. My uncle lived across the street from her and said, hey, they're going on they're going through foreclosure. He knew her husband, they talk, and he's like, they're going through foreclosure. I went and knocked on that lady's door, and I knocked on her door, and she wasn't really that happy about it, but I got a meeting with her husband, Adam, and I helped them sell that house. And the referral web that I have from that is so incredible. I teach a class, and I show the whole entire web of where I got that, not only like knocking on that door and all the people that have been referred, that she's referred me to and that they've referred me to. It is the wildest referral web you will ever see of how much money has been made, how many people have been helped. And that was from knocking on someone's door. And so I kind of have a joke when I come into my office certain days and I'll say, hey, whose door am I going to knock on? And that might not be a physical door. It's more of a, what opportunity am I going to go get in front of today? I think of Eni and Fola. I was referred to these people, and one of my past clients texted me and said, hey, they want to sell their house and buy a new house. And I reached out to him because he gave me their number. I'd reached out to him, nothing. Reached out to him, nothing. They really wouldn't schedule an appointment with me. So then I sent a package that I have. It's a listing package with my, stuff in there on myself, who is Chris Bowers, how my commissions work, testimonials, magnets, big business card. And I sent that out to him. I mailed it to him since they weren't really responding to me. And then a few days later, messaged them. Well, finally they returned the call and they left me a voicemail while I was on a plane to Orlando. And I called them back and like, hey, let's talk about selling the house and buying a house. When I went over there, it was really cool because my magnet was on their fridge. So, me getting that referral was 2 weeks before this meeting. So, but I was just thinking, I sent out that package because I look at it as if I've got to get an opportunities way. That package got in the mail to them. It was something that they could read on me and about my business since they wouldn't answer the phone. They put the magnet on the fridge. It's still there right now. I actually told them to take that off for the photography session that we're going to have. They're selling about a $700,000 house and buying about a $1.1 million. I think of Tony right now. I have him under contract, and Tony was referred to me through Chad, and Chad I met was an online lead. And so just think that through. Like if I would have never have gotten Opportunities Way and got an online lead and worked with Chad, I've not only helped Chad buy a house, sell a house, buy another house. He's referred me to his coworker Chris. He's referred me to another coworker, and now I'm working with one of his employees, Tony, and he's buying a house. I think of John. I went over to his house and I hadn't seen. I helped John buy his house, and probably been 3 years, and he hadn't texted me back for 3 years after we closed. Nothing rude about it, just he's super busy. He had a few more kids. And when I went over to list his house, he texted me one day and said, "Hey, Chris, we want to sell our house." Well, he hadn't responded to me in a few years. When I went there, my magnet was on their fridge. And I thought, man, that's so cool. Like they've been getting my postcards, my magnets, my letters, my text. Even though it looked like a one-way conversation via text, they were still getting it. And so that was me getting an Opportunities Way to earn that business. I think of Siva right now. I've helped him buy 14 properties and sell 2 of his properties. That was an internet lead that came in 2 years ago. That was an internet lead that came in 2 years ago, and I did 16 transactions with him. That to me is just wild. So when I see like getting Opportunities Way, these aren't just supposed to be like, oh, that's a cool story, Chris. I'm trying to say like there's days where you walk into your office and you don't have any work to do, or you don't feel busy, and what you've got to do is just get an Opportunities Way. Roger, cool about this story is this is awesome. I've got Pete's house on the market right now for sale for like 785, and I helped them. So we're selling it right now, but I helped them buy that last year for 765. Well, how I got that business was from Roger, who was a client of mine through the internet. He went on my website one day, put in his information. He lived in Florida, was selling his house for about 1.2, needed to buy about a 1.1 here. I helped him buy that house sight unseen. He closed on that, then referred me to Pete, helped Pete buy a house last year. Now I'm helping him sell that house. But that whole web was started from an internet lead. Now I'm going to take you back and go about 15 years. I had an REO account, real estate owned. That was when the banks would give you their foreclosure properties. And how that started was, I remember I was at my office and there was this guy who had an REO account and he was selling a course, and it was like $800 or something like that. And I remember people in the office being like, I can't believe people are buying that course. You know, that guy's just trying to make money. And he was trying to make money, but he had he had a value, and he was selling his value. And I bought that course and I did the work that was in that course, and I got an REO account. So it was interesting. It wasn't a big one. It was a little one, but it was cool for the, just to get emails and say, here's your assignment. You're going to be selling this property. And I think of that, and I would have never have had that account if I wouldn't have gotten Opportunities Way. And all the naysayers were like, this guy's trying to sell this course for $800. And hey, maybe I've bought courses before where nothing panned out, but I also know that not getting knowledge usually is not a good idea. So I always err on the side of learn from people, try to buy their skill set, and try to go implement it if you want to. The short sale business, I had a good run with short sales back in the day. That's actually how I built my business. And that was from sending out emails. I had a list of realtors' emails, and I sent out an email that said I would help anybody do their short sales listings if they didn't want to, and I'd pay them a referral fee. I had a lot of people email me back and say some vulgar things about me emailing them. I had about 4 realtors email me back and say, hey, you can do this listing. And they started referring me all their short sale work for the next few years. And so that's how I built my business. But I think of that, how cool that story is. And all the clients that I have now and all the referrals that I have from 15 years ago, from sending out those emails to realtors asking for their referrals. And some people would look at that and say, well, what if the realtors get mad at you, or what if this, or what if that? And I don't look at what ifs like that. I look at it like, what if this works? What if this is the coolest story I ever could tell? So when people go to that what if angle of what if negative, I go to what if positive. Like, what if I did this and it's the best thing that ever happened for my business? Let's talk about the Zillow account that I had for a few years. That was from me signing up with Zillow, and I knew I wanted to get more business. And there was realtors out there like, do you want to do business with Zillow, this and that? And I was just like, what if this is the best thing that ever happened to me? And I got a Zillow Flex account and I took that run for a few years. It was a really good run. Don't have it anymore, but that was getting in opportunities way. The $2.6 million home that I closed for Rob, it's the mount. He's on the mountain looking down on my house, and $2.6 million. He was an internet lead on Christmas Eve. I was leaving my mother-in-law's house, and that was an internet lead. Talked to him on the phone, and he's like, why are you calling me back on Christmas Eve? Or why are you taking my phone call on Christmas Eve? I think he said. And I was thinking on the other side, like, why are you calling somebody on Christmas Eve at like 7 o'clock at night? And so I'm not saying to do that kind of stuff. I'm just telling you that this is odd that every cool story that you have in your business usually starts with something that someone would say, I don't know if I want to do that. You might have actually thought, I don't want to do this today, but you did it. I think of my buyer consultation that I had yesterday with Sue and Rich. And that was the day before yesterday. I was calling internet leads. We started a little accountability group, me and a few friends, and we're calling for about 90 minutes a day, Monday through Friday, our internet leads, and just holding each other accountable. And I would not have made calls that day to these people, but I was in this challenge. I'm in this group. So I started calling these leads. Rich answered his phone. He's like, yep, we just put our house on the market in Illinois. We're going to sell it. We're going to get in our motorhome, come to Arizona. We want to buy about a $700,000 house cash. Yesterday, I talked to him and his wife, did an official buyer consultation. That was from not only getting an internet leads coming into my door, calling people that day when I didn't want to. Right now, I have 55 people, I think, in my EXP organization. That's been over about the last 15 months. I've accomplished that. And that started off from teaching classes. Like, that's really how the whole snowball effect started happening. Was I was like, I'm going to teach classes so I can meet more and more realtors, give them my knowledge. I want them to have this knowledge so they can build their businesses. And I might be able to provide value to some realtors where they would want to see what I have to offer and how I could help them grow, build, and scale over the years. But that was sitting down about 14 months ago and not being able to speak in front of people. But I could hear my mom saying, get in opportunities way. And now what I'm starting to tell myself is get in bigger opportunities way. That's really all you've got to do to scale a business, is getting bigger opportunities way, getting things that seem a little bit scarier than they were last year and make that so normal for you. But I can just think I wasn't even able to speak in front of people a year and a half ago, but I knew that I needed to get in opportunities way, and I could hear my mom in my ear telling me, get in opportunities way. And another thing she used to tell me was, don't worry about how much. My mother used to say, don't worry about how much you make today. Don't worry about how much you make off this client. Don't remember how much you make this week. Just look at the end of the year and say, was the amount of work that I had to do worth the pay? And I've always kept that close to me as well, because that kind of goes back into this getting opportunities way. You can go sit one open house and no one comes through. You could call 40 leads today and no one answer. You could knock on 20 doors and no one answer and no one give you business. And some people actually might be rude, but you've got to not size it up by just doing it for that 1 hour, that 30 minutes, that one day, that 1 week. Look at the end of the year and say, doing that specific lane. I told you all the ways to get business. Do 2 of them. Look up at the end of the year and say, doing the actions daily to get business through that avenue, was the work worth the pay? And the answer in real estate is usually yes. And so I just look at the end of the year and think, was this worth it? Was this a good exchange of my time and human energy for the amount I made? And do I want to do it again? Do I want to keep these avenues of business? And do I want to add to it? Do I want to add to it and build onto it better? And do I want to bring anything new into my business? And that's how you build a business. And getting opportunities way, what I want to say is, tell the world what you want loudly, boldly, and consistently. That's something that I'm learning to do quicker and quicker anymore, is tell people what you want. Go around and tell people, like, hey, this is what I want. Whether it's like, let's say you want to help people buy and sell houses, tell more people every single day. Tell your friends and family, tell people on Instagram, tell people on Facebook, mail out to people letters on why you want referrals, knock on doors, ask people if they want to sell their house, like, get in opportunities way and go for no. Russell Shaw had this cool story, when I went to one of his classes many years ago, and he would say, if you get 100% of your consultations that you do, so if you get 100% of your listings that you go on, That just means you work solely with usually your friends and family. And so what I liked about what Russell was saying is you got to go for no, basically, meaning if everybody you talk to wants to do business with you, you're not talking to enough people. I mean, you usually have a smaller book of business. You're working with friends, families, and coworkers. You're going to get some no's when you're playing in the game of getting an opportunity's way because people know other realtors. So go for no. Look for, keep score on how many times someone says no to in a day and actually look for that. Try to find people that say no, because if you're getting enough no's in the day, that means you're getting closer to helping somebody out. And it means you're getting an opportunity's way enough. There's a really good book called Go for No. I would look that up and get that on Audible. So what are you going to do today? What are you going to do today? What door are you knocking? Who are you calling? What open house are you sitting? How many internet leads today are you receiving? You've got to take massive action. And I want to end this with action alleviates anxiety. I was talking to one of my buddies recently, and we were having this conversation. I said, action alleviates anxiety. Anytime you're usually having anxiety because you're thinking about, it's usually because you're thinking about opportunity and how you missed it. And so in business, anxiety can be, it can come from what you know you need to do that you're not doing. So just go put in action. Anytime you're getting a little bit of anxiety, call a few people, send out a few mailers, send an email out, post something on your Instagram, just move. And so that was today's show's guy. It's getting opportunities way. I thank my mom for teaching me that many years ago. Now I'm trying to figure out how to get in bigger opportunities way, do things that scare me just a little bit. And I hope you guys enjoyed today's show.